to the Good Old Football Podcast. That is Auto Magic you're hearing. You can check them out on Spotify, wherever you get your music. Just be sure to like them. If you're in Cincinnati, go check them out live as soon as possible. My name is Matt Edwards. We are single-digit days away from Thanksgiving. That's where my focus is. However, got to think about football as well. A potentially very fun week ahead here as Myles Garrett is appealing his suspension. We'll see if that gets reduced. Colin Kaepernick, if he's going to find a new team, you would think now would be the time. And of course, we've got to start asking at some point, should Lamar Jackson be inducted into Canton right now? I almost said abducted. Of course, no one wants that, and he would probably escape you no matter what. Look, I know that Myles Garrett has been discussed nonstop, but he will be in New York this week appealing that suspension. I do think he should get it reduced to the rest of the regular season should the Browns make the playoffs, which, by the way, I think the chances are now right around 20%. Should the Browns make the playoffs, let him play, whatever. Look, he's towed the line on the field for a while with the hits, and some might say he went over the line last week. Maybe he did, but we know he's a decent human being, right? We got to go by his track record on that. He's not Richie Incognito threatening funeral home workers and his own teammates. He's not Pac-Man Jones, who you may once remember. Pac-Man Jones ripped Amari Cooper's helmet off and bashed Amari's head into it. Pac-Man Jones did not get suspended. A heavy fine, but was not suspended for what's not quite as brutal and violent, but just so happened to be a 1 o'clock Sunday afternoon game that the entire country wasn't watching. But let that sink in for a minute. Pac-Man Jones ripped a guy's helmet off and then on the ground pushed his head into it with force and did not get suspended for it. Myles Garrett is this. He's your friend who's in his late 20s, but he's still going out to the bars a little too much, 3, maybe 4 nights a week. Not the best move, but at the same time, he's not really hurting anyone, just his bank account. But then it happens. Maybe he gets in a fight. Maybe he gets popped for drunk driving. Maybe he gets way too drunk one Tuesday night, goes to send an explicit photo of himself to someone on Snapchat, accidentally post it to his story, and it's up there until 9 a.m. the next day. Those kind of situations happen. It's kind of that tipping point for Myles Garrett right now, the kind of tipping point that maybe wakes him up. And for Myles Garrett is the point where he says, you know what, man, I got to tone it back a little bit. Not a bad guy. Just gets a little carried away sometimes, and when you toe the line like that, eventually you're going to step over. Now, I've also been saying for quite some time the NFL has got to have the conversation, should we allow weapons on the field? No one got hurt. Myles Garrett is an innovator. Look at all the clicks and views. Kidding. Look, the only problem I have with the punishments that got handed out is Mason Rudolph. You've got to suspend him for 1 game, right? I mean, A, he starts the whole thing, which if it ends there, fine, whatever. But he starts it. And then he continues to chase Myles Garrett down and run his mouth while Myles Garrett is being held back. Did you see how he got up after he got his helmet ripped off? I mean, I don't know if I would have done, or if I would not have done the same thing Myles Garrett did. That doesn't make it right, but if that dude is trying to rip my helmet off, and then after I'm being held back is still coming at me like I did something wrong, and that, I might have done the same thing Myles Garrett did. And I'm a nice dude, too. Those of you who listen and actually know me know I'm a pretty nice dude, but there's been a few instances in my life where I've had someone send me over the edge, and in those situations, if I would have had a football helmet in my hand, and I didn't, but if I did, I might have taken a swing. I might have done it. Not saying it's right, just saying I might have done it too. Therefore, I can't be one of you people who goes out there and says, Myles Garrett should be deported. Some people think Myles Garrett should go to jail. I mean, if you tackle someone on the street, you go to jail, potentially. Should we put every NFL player? I mean, Vontaze Burfict has tried to hurt people. No doubt about that. And he's done it multiple times. Do we put him in jail? So many do-gooders just kind of jumped on that. Ban him for life. Be a grown man, all right? I do wish Mason Rudolph would have got suspended. He should have got suspended. Steelers fans probably wish he would have got suspended too. He looked terrible. That's the thing. If not for that incident, we're talking, Steelers fans are all week about Mason Rudolph being just absolutely dreadful. There for a minute, you kind of wonder, is this the guy you want to groom behind Ben Roethlisberger? Right now, it looks like absolutely not. I did think it was really funny how after Garrett took the swing at him, Mason Rudolph threw his hands up in the air like the officials. The 50-year-old officials at that point were going to help him. It was like he was yelling for his mom to come out. Come on, man. I'll tell you what, Ohio hates the Steelers. You remember, it would have been, I think, 2 years ago, that Bengals Monday night game? That was the last of Ryan Shazier's career. I'm not saying the Bengals or Browns are necessarily looking to hurt anyone. But when Pittsburgh comes to town, it's always been, since Ben Roethlisberger has been in Pittsburgh, the Steelers have dominated both the Ohio teams. So you expect them to get a little fired up, and much like the Bengals have been in the past, when they believe that they can compete with the Steelers, they're coming in with that energy. And look, Pittsburgh's created that reputation for themselves. They're the Steel Curtain back in the day. They're the Steel City. They always have prided themselves on being one of the tough NFL teams. And they've got a quarterback who, is built like Shrek. They've had Jerome Bettis, the bus, big, rough and tough, James Harrison, guys like that in recent years. That said, you probably shouldn't swing blunt objects at their head. Pittsburgh comes to Cincinnati this Sunday. I'm starting to worry about these Bengals. Starting to think it's not going to be their year. I am starting to wonder about Zach Taylor in Cincinnati. Joe Mixon on Sunday, in their loss to Oakland, averaged 6 yards a carry, and they only gave him the ball 15 times. Meanwhile, you let your rookie fourth-round quarterback throw it 31 times. I'm not a genius, but these are equations that are not difficult to figure out. Right? Joe Mixon, your stud running back, getting 6 a pop. It's a one-score game. It's not like they had to throw to catch up. It's not that difficult. Bengals have the Steelers and Jets in Cincinnati the next 2 weeks. The Steelers are beat up. Mason Rudolph literally has a dent in his head. Juju Smith-Schuster might not play. He's dealing with injuries from that game as well. That's the other thing people forget before the incident with Myles Garrett. I mean, that was a rough game. Same with when the Bengals, the Ryan Shazier's last game. That was a nasty game, but because Ryan Shazier had to be carted off, and obviously everything that followed, the rest of the stuff didn't get as much attention. I'll tell you what, Ryan Shazier, I've had the pleasure to talk to him many times. Very nice dude. He's one of those, you remember when you were little and you always had a friend whose dad seemed really mean from a distance, but then you would talk to him and you're like, this is a nice guy. He just constantly is ready to take on an army by himself. That's Ryan Shazier. He is intense, but he is as polite and welcoming as they come. Cool to see him still on the sidelines. Good guy. But Bengals, you got to figure out a way to win a stinking football game. 0-10 now. Worst start since 1993. If you didn't see that stat, 77 times over the weekend. Here it is one more time for you. If I'm Andy Dalton, I'm bringing a flask on the sideline with me the rest of the year. I'm just boozing. Maybe have a stogie. What a miserable time. I feel bad for Andy. We've been over that, but what a miserable, miserable time in Cincinnati right now. And once again, they're close. They only lost by a touchdown to a Raiders team that is in the conversation for the wild card. But at some point, you quit saying, hey, it was close. They're getting there. You're 0-10, and it's the NFL. This isn't college where you're trying to build a program. You've got NFL players. Figure it out. Monday night game, look, Phillip Rivers proving my point I made last week. He's not a Hall of Fame quarterback. I think right now he might be hurt. If he's not hurt, and he'll be 38 next month, if he's not hurt, man, you got to think about calling it a career because he did not look good at all. There were 15-yard out routes where he couldn't get the ball there. He almost has to be hurt. There's no way you fall off that quickly. Although we did kind of see it with Peyton Manning, right? It was kind of just out of nowhere. He just did not seem to have the arm strength he once had. Peyton Manning got to go out on top. Unfortunately, Phillip Rivers, not going to be the same situation. And I'm not saying he's going to retire. Heck, I don't know. I'm just saying if you watch that Monday night game, no doubt, whoever was wearing number 17, maybe it was the altitude, I don't know, but the altitude makes the ball travel easier. And by the way, teams have been hanging 30-plus on the Chiefs all year. Phillip Rivers could not score in the first half. They got 3 field goals. They eventually get a touchdown in the second half. But he, this might be it for old Phillip Rivers, so we'll see. And then the thing about the Mexico game last night, they were in, I think, Mexico City. I could be wrong. They were in Mexico, the country of Mexico, south of the border, as the locals like to say. It's the only stadium you can find down there. And if you didn't watch, So during halftime, the players had to go up a ramp, and they made it sound like the locker room was outside the stadium. Between plays, these guys are sucking in oxygen. Apparently, it's half a mile higher than where they play in Denver. Maybe don't put your guys through that. I don't know if, you got the face of the league right now, or at least presumed face of the league for the next 10 years in Patrick Mahomes, and you're putting these guys in these situations. I don't know. Maybe I'm wrong. Maybe they like the long walks to the locker room. Maybe they like not being able to breathe. Maybe you're into that as you try to battle to keep the Raiders away from you. I don't know. It just, maybe I'm complaining too much. Colin Kaepernick worked out over the weekend. That was a debacle. That was, and look, I do think the national media kind of blows this out of proportion a little bit. I think in their hearts they genuinely think that people care more than they do. And we see this in politics a lot because the Twitter mob is very vocal, and then they assume that everything on Twitter is the pulse of the country. Simply not the situation. I think only about a quarter of the country actually has a Twitter account. But unfortunately, media as a whole has decided that that's where everything that matters is discussed on a regular basis. And really, it's just people like myself who don't have any friends and are looking to put a message out there. It's kind of like sitting on a park bench by yourself, and I heard this from someone else at one point. It's like sitting on a park bench by yourself, having a conversation, and hoping someone sits down and talks to you as well. I would like to see Colin Kaepernick get signed. I root for chaos. I root for drama. As I said earlier, and I've said a million times, the NFL is very much a reality TV show, and that's why the Kaepernick situation over the weekend got as much attention as it did. He's a backup quarterback. Backup quarterbacks holding workouts typically don't get that much attention, if any attention at all. But I'd like to see him get signed. Just, if you're a fan, and I assume listening to this podcast you are, I wouldn't like to see him get signed to my team. I'd like to see him get signed somewhere I can watch from afar. The first reason, two reasons really. One, he's not that good. I mean, people can say what they want. He's certainly not as good as those who will unequivocally defend him as if he is. There are some people who I'm pretty certain don't watch football, but they support his stance and therefore think it's insane he's not on a team. And, whatever your opinion on him taking a knee is, that's fine. I'm not really interested in getting into that. But he's a fringe starter or a backup. That's what he is. And if you want proof of that, in his second to last season in the NFL, he got beat out in training camp by Blaine Gabbert. That was before he ever took a knee during the national anthem. He got beat out for a starting position by Blaine Gabbert. But sure, keep telling yourself that he is worthy, unquestionably worthy, of a starting position in the NFL. And I've said this before too, the second reason. One of the main reasons NFL teams don't want to sign him is the same reason they did not want to sign Tim Tebow. Celebrity backup quarterback's never been popular in the NFL. And the other guy I thought about when I was thinking about this, Johnny Manziel. If Johnny Manziel isn't some celebrity on TMZ partying in Vegas, hanging out on the Swan, being an absolute wild man, and more power to him, but if he's not doing that, he probably gets another shot in the NFL. But he partied too much. If he was just a normal dude who happened to be a first-round bust, someone else definitely would have taken a shot on him. Now, as for Colin Kaepernick, if you do sign him, you will lose some fans. And I saw a lot of this, fans. Actually, I didn't see a lot of it. It's just a few dorks who were like, I won't root for this team if they sign him. Whatever. No one cares. The NFL's fine. Have you guys realized that? The NFL is fine. You might lose some fans, but I think you would gain more fans if you sign Colin Kaepernick. I just wouldn't want the, hey, I'm defending this guy only because it's popular in my political circle. I don't want those fans jumping on my team's bandwagon. And I think most fans wouldn't. We like to enjoy football. And if you're a football fan already and you like Kaepernick and you want to support whatever team might sign him, that's great. I think we see that a lot in the NFL and sports in general. I think whoever drafts Joe Burrow is going to steal some fans in Ohio from the Steelers, Bengals, and Browns. This happens in football regularly. Whoever drafts Tua is going to gain some Alabama fans who are now NFL fans. We see this on a regular basis. So if you're already a football fan and you like Kaepernick, you want to support his new team if he gets one, that's great. But if you're someone who's just doing it for political reasons to try to gain clout, to try to make some people around you think that you're woke. If you're a Bernie bro who's going to try to talk to me about universal basic income during halftime of the Monday night game and ask the bartender if they have any vegan options on the menu, I'm not really interested in that person weighing in. You can do it, but no one's going to take you seriously. And those guys exist in New York City. I've met a couple, not bad people, but certainly not fun people. All right? Again, reality TV show. I will say the thing that did not look good is that Colin Kaepernick told the scouts, it was kind of funny, but it's like, dude, come on. He told the scouts to tell their team owners to stop being scared about signing him. Now, look, I don't know how many job interviews you have all been on. Hopefully, only a few, and they've went well, and you're enjoying a nice, fine career. But typically, dissing the interviewer's boss, I would imagine, is frowned upon. That's just my guess. Look, sometimes, Cap, you got to take one on the chin, man. Can't go in there like Dale and Brennan from Step Brothers, trying to help with the whole Pan thing. You just got to take one on the chin. You got to be nice. Shake some hands. And by the way, Kaepernick, of all the people to feel bad for, he's probably not one of them. He's not going hungry. He's making millions with Nike. He's avoiding brain damage every Sunday. He's not on an NFL field. And if he really wanted to play football, he could do what other quarterbacks hoping for a shot do. Go out there in the XFL and the CFL. Ball out. Ball out, man. Again, I hope someone does sign him. I think it would be good. I think it will be fun. I think the people who say they would stop watching, who cares? Get over yourself. You don't matter. No one does. The supporters don't either. It doesn't matter. The NFL is going to be fine. But at the end of the day, for me, if we're talking about it from a pure football standpoint, he got beat out by Blaine Gabbert. And remember, you can't say that the whole kneeling thing ticked off his coach, who was Chip Kelly at the time, because it was before that. So you can keep showing me video of him lobbing those 60-yard passes in the air. Jamarcus Russell did that too. And that's another thing that I saw all the non-football consumers plugging that into the Twitter timeline over the weekend, having no clue what they're talking about. No one else is on the field. You were a Division I quarterback. I would certainly hope you can hit someone 60 yards in stride for something you've been preparing to do all week and something you've been doing your whole life. Anyways, I'm sure that no matter what, if you're listening to this right now, you're either happy with me or angry at me. Both, I don't know. Do what you want. We'll see what happens. I'm interested to see what happens. You know what? You certainly saw as we move along here, you certainly saw that pass interference on DeAndre Hopkins on Sunday. It was not called on the field on the Texans receiver. It was reviewed and then not overturned. Now, look, the league should just wipe the pie off their face now. Nix the whole reviewing pass interference thing. It's got to go after this year, but you certainly saw that video, right? Maybe you turned off your TV. Maybe you yelled at your kids. Maybe, you went outside and told your neighbor how angry you've been in recent months about the garden that he decided to build right along the fence. I don't know. I wanted to get into a topic last week, and fortunately I waited because this D-Hop thing really goes into it, and that is this. The clown show that is this whole NFL officiating is now a massive part of Roger Goodell's legacy as NFL commissioner. He may very well be remembered more than anything for just botching up the rules. And it is tough on the officials. Like, don't get me wrong, they have done some boneheaded stuff, but I remember back in the day, maybe a rule change would happen every few years. Now, and it would be a big deal, right? Like, hey, there's a new rule change this year. It's been 4 years since they've added anything. Now, the initial attempt in this flurry of rule changes we're seeing every year has been to make the game safer, right? That's why we started having all these as opposed to just one every few years, trying to make it safer. We knew about CTE and the concussions, but it's kind of gone past that now. The rules have continuously become more difficult for us to comprehend. I mean, when I was like a teenager until like early 20s, and of course now I'm 73, when I was at that age, I knew everything. Something would happen on the field, I could nail it down. Can't keep up now. Things change all the time. And how many times I saw it in the Monday night game this week where this officiating rules analyst disagrees with what the refs think on the field. Or it says that they got something wrong. It was something to do with the running clock after that Mike Williams catch on Monday night. No one knows what's going on. These officials can't keep up. They're old dogs. Can't teach them new tricks, man. And then they have to do so, not only that, but they have to do so in the era of Twitter, where we, the consumer, can see that replay as many times as we want in crystal clear vision. That didn't used to be the case. It used to be however many times CBS or Fox or NBC showed it to us, that's what we got. And sometimes it was 2 or 3 times. Sometimes it wasn't at all. Now we can see something. Didn't get to see it enough. I'm going to go look on Twitter. I'm going to pause. I'm going to freeze frame. I'm going to do this. I'm going to do that. And it sucks. It's no fun. It slows down the game. Officials don't want to rule on anything in real time because they're afraid of getting it wrong and being ridiculed. They'd rather hold up the game and save their name. And I get that to an extent. But the commissioner has to figure out a way to do a better job with this. And look, it's like the presidency. What happens on a commissioner's watch is not always his fault, but he still shoulders the blame. That's part of making $30 million a year, which is what Roger Goodell makes. Roger Goodell did not invent Twitter. He did not intervene. Boy, I got to get better at talking. He did not invent high-definition cameras, but they have changed the way we watch football, and it's made it more difficult on his employees to work with. And our big problem is the inconsistency with how penalties are called, and Goodell is constantly reprogramming and rewriting the rules. Again, maybe not him hands on everything, but he is the head of the snake, and right now, to me, that's his legacy. If you're retired tomorrow, you're remembering him for one of two things. One, there was a lot of off-the-field issues when he came into the league. He suspended, who did he suspend? I think he suspended Pac-Man Jones for a full season. He suspended the late Chris Henry for half a season. He was very tough on guys, so maybe you remember that. If that's number one, then undoubtedly number two is the absolute goofiness that is the NFL officials right now and how they're managing the game. Just kind of, tailed off there, I know. But I'm honestly tired of talking about it. You got to think eventually they get a ref in the booth, but I feel like it's important to talk about. You feel like they get a ref in the booth eventually, watching those replays. Just make it quick. Make it happen right away. Relay it down. Get the freaking game moving. If a referee at any level, by the way, did not think that was pass interference on, I think it was Marlon Humphreys of the Ravens. If the referee at any level didn't think that was pass interference, strip them of their stripes, force them to watch the 2019 Bengals on rerun for 6 months. I mean, it was the most obvious thing you've ever seen. And someone brought up the point, too. They made this rule for that pass interference in the Rams-Saints game that I think, if called properly, would have sent the Saints to the Super Bowl. I'm putting my money on Drew Brees more often than not in those situations. And I don't know now. And someone brought this up. This is not an original Matt Edwards thought. I like to give credit where it's due. I know that's not a popular thing, but someone else, and I wish I knew who said it. Anyways, they said, I don't think that would have been overturned on replay. And I think they're right. So what was the point? Goodell has slowed the game down in the process, I believe made it more difficult to attract new fans to the game, which he obviously wants to do. I mean, you're having these games in Mexico and London for a reason. They're going to get bored. They're used to soccer, people running around nonstop. By the way, Vontaze Burfict talked to The Athletic this week. I was surprised this didn't get more play, but maybe people are just sick of him now. Vontaze Burfict talked with The Athletic following Myles Garrett's attempt at killing Mason Rudolph and called Roger Goodell, and this is a direct quote, a total bitch, end quote. Makes me feel better about Vontaze whispering in my ear that no one wanted to talk to me. Good luck to Burfict on getting reinstated, the guy who has all of the power over you. And it wasn't like a slip of the tongue. He called him the old bitch on multiple occasions. He did. I've said it a million times. Vontaze Burfict cannot control himself. What are you going to do? Get the guy some therapy. I don't know. All right, that was a lot. You know what? I recently learned that some people eat macaroni and cheese on Thanksgiving. That's been weighing on my mind for about 45 minutes now. This That's disturbing. That's not a Thanksgiving food. Maybe you make it for your kids if they're picky and you're just trying to enjoy the best holiday of the year in peace. But if you're a grown-up and you're eating macaroni and cheese on Thanksgiving, maybe you've got a little bit of exploring to do within yourself, you know? Pilgrims didn't eat mac and cheese. They ate stuffing and mashed potatoes like adults. All right, maybe I'll get into Thanksgiving next week. It's my time of year, baby. Football, Thanksgiving, the NFL Thanksgiving slate. Let me see. I'm developing a lisp. I think it is Bears-Lions, of course, in Detroit. And then I know it's Bills at the Cowboys. That should be a fun one. And then the night game, I think, is the NFC South. I think that's Falcons-Saints. So that's the slate in case you're looking ahead to that. Of course, we still have this week to go. Still a lot to go. We'll keep up with it all year long. We are about half an hour in now, trying to get these a little closer to 30 minutes. Good God, statistics tell me that people like that more. I try to go this whole thing without having any sort of beverage because I hate, if you know me, you know that I hate hearing people eat or drink on television or in audio. Like those commercials, even like pouring liquid, like a lot of beverage commercials, you can hear it pouring in the glass, and I despise that. I don't know what it is. I've heard of other people who are similar, who absolutely cannot stand it. I hate hearing people eat. I hate slurping. I hate, if there's like a cheeseburger commercial and you can hear the person crunching into the burger. I don't want to hear a stranger eat. That doesn't make my appetite rise. So what I'm saying is I never take a drink or anything while I'm doing this, and as I talk a million miles a minute, I should slow down. As I talk a million miles a minute, my mouth gets dry. I can't speak. I don't know what you people want from me. All right, you can find me on Twitter at Matt Edwards. That's MatteEdwards. You can talk to me there. We can be best friends. If you like the show, tell a friend, tell a family member, tell your dog. Just tell them to listen. Tell them if they don't listen, you will rip off their helmet and swing it at them. That's how it goes. It's a Good Old Football Podcast. We will see you next week.